Hello, good morning everybody. Welcome to the Licensing Act Subcommittee meeting on Wednesday the 14th of the 10th. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Licensing Act Subcommittee. Before consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If the Council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, the meeting will be adjourned so that access can be restored. If the issue cannot be resolved, the Chairman will halt the meeting and the remaining business will be conducted at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, the Chairman will adjourn for a short period and try to re-establish their connection. As members are called to speak, the Chairman will remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, I will advise you. The vote will be taken by roll call and the result announced by myself. Members must be present for the duration of the discussion on the application in order to be able to vote. We have public representation at today's meeting and they have joined us by telephone. Where a member has declared a non-registrable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they will be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm the procedure for today's meeting is that members of the committee who wish to speak on an item should indicate by using the raise their hand function. Before we start today's business, I will ask committee members to confirm they are present and state their electoral division. Members, I will now call your name. Please confirm your name and your electoral division. Councillor Malcolm Brown.
Thank you. Malcolm Brown, Councillor for St Austell, Bethel.
Thank you. Councillor Burt Biscoe.
Burt Biscoe, Boscawen, Truro.
And Councillor Geoffrey Evans.
Geoffrey Evans, Councillor for Falmouth Orwennick.
Thank you, members. I can also confirm the following officers are present. We have Jess Daniels, Licensing Officer, Sharon Dower, Licensing Officer, and Mark Andrews as our legal advisor, and myself, Helen Snell, as the Democratic Officer for the meeting. If I can turn to item 1 on the agenda, please. Election of chairman for the meeting. Do I have any nominations for chair, please?
Yes, I would be pleased to nominate Councillor Biscoe.
Great pleasure to second.
Thank you. So that's Councillor Malcolm Brown proposing and Councillor Geoffrey Evans as seconder. If I can do a roll call to make sure we're all in agreement, please. If you could say for, against or abstaining. So Councillor Malcolm Brown.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Biscoe.
For.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Chairman. Councillor Biscoe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, and good morning to everybody who's attending. I'm just going to outline, I was just firstly going to ask if there are any apologies for absence, which there aren't, and to ask if there are any declarations of interest. No. So we're going to move to agenda 4 on the 4.1 on the agenda, which is to consider an application to vary a premises licence at Old Custom House, Wharf Road, St Ives. Could I ask if the proprietor of the premises is on the call?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And you're Mr. Henderson?
Hayes.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Hayes.
Mr. Hayes, I beg your pardon. Right. And I think we have a number of other persons on the call.
Yes. Yes.
Would you
Julianne Wallace-Jones.
Julianne Wallace-Jones.
Yes.
And any others?
Nigel Wallace-Jones.
Nigel. Right. Any others? No.
Chairman, I can confirm that the 3 other persons on the call, that's it. There's just the 3 of them. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to outline for you before we start what the procedure will be for the meeting. Goes on a bit, so bear with me. I'm going to invite you all to introduce yourselves, which you have already done. Well, we'll do it a bit more formally in a minute. And then we will begin by the licensing officer outlining the matter. And at this stage, licensing will mention any conditions which have been suggested and or agreed. And then after that, the members of the subcommittee, will be able to ask questions of the licensing officer. And I will then ask if there are any other parties who wish to speak to the hearing, and just to identify them. And then I will ask the applicant or their representative to present their application and to call any witnesses that they may have in support of their request, their application. And then members of the committee will be able to ask questions of the applicant. And then we will move on to the responsible authorities. And I don't think we have any responsible authorities present. Is that right, Helen?
That is correct, Chair. Jessica here.
Thank you, Jessica. And then we will move on to, well, that's all of the responsible authorities. Hang on. And then we will receive representations from other persons. That is Mr. and Mrs. Wallace Jones and any others who pitch up, I guess. And then members will be able to ask questions of those other persons as they make their presentations. At the moment, I guess, Mr. and Mrs. Wallace Jones, you're going to make one presentation?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
I'll be doing it.
Fine. And then I will invite the chairman and members can ask questions of any party, and then I will invite the submission of a final submission from the applicant. He will respond to any points that have been raised or make a final presentation. And then the subcommittee will retire to obtain legal advice, and we will determine the application, and then we will reconvene in order that we to notify the decision. Is that right, Helen? Or to be confirmed in writing? That's right, it is.
Yes, yes, thank
So
you.
the decision, we won't reconvene to confirm the decision. We will let all parties know in writing what the decision is, and that will be done forthwith. So there's a nice simple process for us. Hope everybody's grasped that first time round. So without further ado, let me ask Jessica Daniel, the licensing officer, if she would care to put the matter to the committee.
Good morning, Chair. Before I begin, I would like to make the public aware that a copy of the existing premises plan has been forwarded to the members this morning for their information. I would also like to make you aware that the virtual hearing producer has notified me that due to technicalities, the 2 video clips supplied by one of the other persons are unable to be broadcast at this time. I would like to confirm to you that all parties to the hearing have had sight of the 2 clips, and that if a member of the public would like, they can contact me after the hearing and I will email them over. Thank you. An application has been received from Cankar Limited for the variation of a premises licence for Old Custom House, Wharf Road, St Ives. The application is to extend the daily opening hours from 10:30 to 22:30 to 0800 to 0130, and to amend the on sales of alcohol from 10:30 to 2200 to 10:30 to 0100. The application is also to authorise provision of recorded music between 2300 and 0130 and provision of late night refreshment between 2300 and 0100. The applicant also wishes to remove conditions found in the operating schedule on the current licence and to replace them with proposed new conditions. The precise details of these conditions are found on pages 3 and 4 in my report. During the consultation period, the applicant instructed the licensing authority to incorporate police suggested conditions into the application's operating schedule, and these are found as Appendix 6 and on pages 4 and 5 in the report. A representation has been received from Environmental Protection, who consider that the granting of the variation may undermine the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective, and this was Appendix 4. Representations have also been received from 12 other persons who consider that the granting of the variation could undermine the licensing objectives, and in particular the prevention of public nuisance. These representations are found as Appendix 5. The licensing officer received an email from the applicant responding to the representations and also providing more detail with regards to the proposed variation, and this is found in the report as Appendix 6. Following the end of the 28-day consultation period, the licensing officer was made aware that Environmental Protection and the applicant had been in discussion. Subsequently, the licensing officer has been instructed by the applicant to incorporate Environmental Protection suggested conditions into the application's operating schedule. These conditions and the agreement are found in the supplementary agenda. As such, Environmental Protection have withdrawn their representation as they no longer consider that the licensing objective for public nuisance could be undermined. The panel must consider whether the steps proposed by the applicants in the operating schedule are adequate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. If so, you must grant the application. Alternatively, you may impose additional conditions that you consider necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives. If additional conditions could not make the operating schedule adequate and it is necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives, the application may be refused. Thank you, Chair.
You're on mute, Councillor Biscoe.
Sorry, thank you very much. Jessica, can I say, are there any questions from the other members? That was what I was asking first.
Chairman, it's Helen Snell, Democratic Services. Can I just advise you that there is somebody else has joined the meeting.
Right.
However, I can just see it coming up on the participant list as anonymous. So I don't know, could the person who's just joined let us know who they are, please?
Hi, yes, it's Andrew Woodhouse joining.
Andrew Woodhouse, thank you.
Right, okay. Good. Good morning, Mr. Woodhouse, and welcome. We've begun the meeting, and we've just heard from the licensing officer who's set out the matter. And I'm just asking the two members of the committee if they, three myself as well, if they have any questions of the licensing officer.
No questions.
Okay.
No, I haven't got questions either.
Okay. All right.
Councillor Biscoe, it's Mark Andrews from Legal. I've just got one question, if that's okay.
Yes.
Just to confirm, Jess, that the other persons have seen the suggested conditions from Environmental Health?
Yes, everything has been forwarded to all parties. All parties have had emailed sight of everything that the licensing authority has received from all parties.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
Just to mention, if I may, I don't know, is this do people just talk when they want to, or how do they work?
Sorry, is that Mr. Woodhouse, is it?
Yes. Hi.
No. You're known as an other person in this context. You would be able to make a presentation to the committee at a later stage in the proceeding, and at that time the committee will be able to ask questions of you. As far as I'm aware, there is no facility, Mark advised me, for cross-examination.
Yes, it's Mark from Legal. That's correct, Chairman. As obviously Mr. Woodhouse missed the procedure, but basically we've heard from the licensing officer. We'll now hear from the applicant. once the applicant's spoken, there'll be questions of the applicant from members, and then it will be passed over to the other persons, of which you are one of the other persons, and there is another person that wishes to speak. Members will then ask you questions, and then it will be up to the applicant to have the final say. So you'll have your opportunity to speak, but there's no opportunity to cross-examine.
Okay. It was just to say, just as a clarification on that comment about everything being distributed, there was reference to a noise assessment and management plan. I haven't seen that. I don't believe, and I'm not sure who has seen that.
May I answer that, Chair?
Yes.
That was nothing to do with us. That was an agreement between Environmental Protection and the applicant with reference to their discussions. So the licensing authority haven't had sight of it either. We were not party to that discussion.
Right. Okay, I'm going to stop that now. I'm going to now ask, where have I got to? Sorry. I'm going to ask Mr. Hayes if he would like to make a presentation of his views to the committee.
Sure. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, so thanks for allowing me to present our case. I basically just really wanted to point out our aim here, and it really is only to make a minor variation in the license and really to bring it in line with all the other surrounding businesses in the area. We felt that it was an antiquated license made prior to the 2003 Licensing Act, and in our opinion doesn't really make the business very viable, whilst also not really meeting like the needs and desires of local and visitors alike. So we really wanted to sort of continue and try and keep the business going, obviously, and also keep the employment going, and just try and feel that this variation, just bring it up to date really, and in line with everything else. There's a bit of background to me and obviously the business. We're locals that live basically and run two other businesses in St Ives. We employ over 40 people. We have the Queen's Hotel on the High Street, which is a St Austell tenanted pub, and the Rum and Crab Shack, which is also a bar and restaurant, which is only a few doors down from the Customs House. So we're quite aware of how to run places in St Ives on the harbour front. We've run these for over 10 years. We've had really no problems with police, noise complaints, or any complaints from the neighbours. So we've been quite responsible in terms of the way we've managed those two businesses. In terms of this business, we sort of signed the papers literally a few days before lockdown. So we found it's been incredibly challenging to try and make something work and try and make the best of like what is actually only a few months of our summer trade. So we recognise that this business has really changed hands repeatedly over the last few years, and we really feel we just want to try and make this work. Feel that obviously St Ives is kind of attractive, successful in terms of the vibrancy of the bars and restaurants in town, and this is what draws people to the town as much as anything else, as much as the culture and everything. So we did a check on other properties in the area, obviously surrounding properties, which we're aware of anyway because we were one of them with the Rum and Crab Shack, and there we found that the licenses were basically for late night refreshment and live recorded music were all between 1 and 2 a.m. Now it's obviously our aim to work as much as we can with local business owners and holiday lets and residents, and I feel like we've done this very successfully with our other two businesses, particularly with the Rum and Crab Shack, where we have a lot more adjoining properties, flats above as well, and we've managed this really well, I think. So, you know, we understand it's about working with other people and trying to sort of mitigate any kind of unnecessary problems. And we feel that actually with this business, it's much smaller and much more manageable than all these other businesses, including, I would say, argue the Rum and Crab Shack, because it only has one adjoining property, and you know, it's much more manageable in terms of the size and the position of it. To keep this short and sweet, I just would like to outline really what we've done so far. We've worked incredibly hard with the police, licensing, environmental protection, fire, in terms of looking at what we need to do to bring it up to date. And obviously with staffing as well, and how we've tried to kind of work around that. We've just updated the DPS to Stuart, who's my business partner, who also runs the other premises and lives in St Ives. And fire, we've looked at updating all the fire assessments. We looked at it as very out of date. It had no fire alarms, no smoke alarms, no fire extinguishers, no call points. So we've actually put all this in the last 8 weeks. Detectors, a fire alarm system, a call point near the door, extinguishers, and got this signed off. With the police, we've worked with them. We've agreed on 4 of the measures which they outlined to put into the, including CCTV, signage on the exits, refusals register, incident register, training registered, and supporting the Challenge 25 policy, which is what we already do actually in the Roman Crab Shack. And again, with like we outlined at the start, environmental protection, we've worked with them over the last 3 weeks to produce a noise management plan, a detailed acoustic report, which I think has been sort of signed off by environmental protection. And we're looking at trying to, and we've put most of those things in place already. So obviously we're keen to do this to try and minimise any disturbance or potential threat to kind of other businesses surrounding us. And you know, this is kind of where we're coming from. We want to try and make this business work. We want to try and make it work, you know, with everybody else being happy around us. So in summary, really, all we're trying to do is bring the license up to date, make the business viable. We're doing nothing more than what's already going on in that area. We've done quite a lot already. As I say, we're just trying to look at this rationally and reasonably. We've got a good track record with other businesses in the area, working on with people surrounding us. And I feel like we're responsible operators. You know, we've got the town's best interest at heart. We've done everything we possibly can with the various agencies in order to make this work. And I'd argue that actually what we've put in place is probably now much safer for customers, general public, and surrounding businesses alike. So really, to keep it short, that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to make a go of it and try and work with everybody around us. And what is actually currently incredibly difficult circumstances. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hayes. Do either of my colleagues have any questions?
I have no questions.
I do, please.
Okay, Malcolm.
Could I ask the applicant? We've obviously had a large number of objections to the licence variation, and I was wondering, firstly, if you were surprised by that, whether there are any particular comments by the people who have made representations that you wish to comment on at this stage, and whether there are any modifications to the license application that you would accept if we felt, after hearing from them and having already read what others have written, that we think that they have a case.
I think we've done a lot of background work and tried to separate some of the emotional stuff with what is actually realistic, and bringing in the professionals basically in terms of environmental protection, and tried to keep it as objective as possible. So I would say no to that question.
Right. Could I just ask you, Mr. Hayes, because a number of the objection letters refer to specific events and give dates, mainly at the beginning of September, well after lockdown, for incidents that occurred. There's one in particular which is described, I think, I forget who by now, which describes a quite loud situation. It's on page 69 of our report, and is from Mr. Nigel Wallace-Jones, and he is talking about it being open till 11 p.m. And alcohol served after the 10 p.m. limit. This is when the curfew came in, and there was a music event, and then there's another reference to a similar, if not the same event, when people said that there were people crowding out through the door and so on, and loud music. I just wonder the extent to which you feel that in light of the conditions that we're asking you to, or you're agreeing to accept, that you feel the degree of control that you've got there is sufficient to make sure that within the licensing restrictions that currently exist, or indeed the licensing restrictions that you're applying for, that we can expect that an orderly house will be kept.
An orderly house has been kept. I mean, I've looked at some of the, obviously the objections, and we have obviously clearly had to keep COVID safe, and therefore within the property we've just spread the tables out. There's only 6 tables in there. They're all spread out. There's only a limited amount of people that can get in there. I think the incident that we're talking about was actually after hours, and we weren't actually open. So we have actually just changed the DPS to being Stuart, who's my business partner. So I'd hope that having the business just down the road, or not even just down the road, a few doors down, and trying to get the staffing up to speed in terms of how we're running it and how we want to run it, then I wouldn't see any future problems in that at all.
Okay. And I just wanted to ask you, how many accesses are there into the premises that will be licensed?
One,
just a single.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Yeah, one.
And that access, it's difficult from the map we've been supplied, which is why we've asked for the plan. That access opens onto what? Onto
a stairwell, which goes down to the ground floor.
And how far down does it go? It's at the first story then.
So it's a first floor property, yeah.
Yes, okay. So and then it comes to what looks to me like, I think, what's known as Custom House Alley.
No, it comes down actually right onto the Wharf Road.
Onto Wharf Road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there is no rear access.
No.
And the last question, because at least one of the objectors, I'm afraid there's quite a lot of them, I can't give you the precise reference, speaks about having a stud partition wall.
Basically. We actually, so when we did works with environmental protection, we got a noise consultant to come in and to test some of the sounds across different ranges, and we did an exploratory check on the wall, because obviously that was key to find out what the transmission was across the space. And we found that, not seeing the plans of everything, that actually that probably was one area, but they'd obviously put in some quite good stud work with soundproofing, and then there were 2 layers of plasterboard on our side and whatever OSB board, and then some other stuff on the other side. And then actually the noise report, we did the noise report based on that construction. So
okay, all right. And then just one last question: how many other premises? I mean, because you said in your presentation that what you want to do is to achieve an updating of the conditions. And to be honest with you, I think that with I mean, doors and windows kept closed and so on. I think that the modernisation of the conditions doesn't seem unreasonable. However, you are also asking for a fairly substantial extension to opening times from so you'd be closing at 1:30 and not 22:30. And I just wondered, how many other premises are there in the vicinity of Wharf Road that have licenses that extend until 1:30?
I would say all the adjacent properties do, which is the ones we checked out. I couldn't give you an exact number. I just looked at the ones in the most immediate area, so the ones to the left and the ones to the right of us.
Right. Okay.
We actually have at the Roman Crab Shack, we have it to I can't remember. Well, it's 12. I think it's 12. But because the way it runs, it's not. But I think the balcony has it to 1:32 o'clock. I can't remember off the top of my hand. I don't have the details here. But having looked at it, they're all between 1 and 2.
Mm.
Whether they use that, I guess, is up to them. But there are, I mean, I guess the key thing is to try and run it in such a way in which it doesn't create problems, and that's what we're trying to do with this.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for answering the questions. That's very kind of you. Does anybody else have? Neither of my colleagues have any questions. Mark, do you have any questions? Malcolm.
Yeah. Could I just ask one more question? Can you hear me? Sorry. No.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. I just wanted the applicant. Can you just explain to us a bit what your, if you like, what your target market is, and whether that varies in the different seasons of the year? So, in effect, if the establishment opened in the way in which you're intending, what would be the image of it that you would like to put across to people who might want to use it?
That's quite a good question. I think it's quite a difficult one to answer in the current climate. We obviously open this trying to make the most of what has been a pretty disastrous year. We have used some branding behind a company that we have called Stargazing Rum, which is which we had the branding for, which we just used as an idea. So I think what we're looking for is something which is much more grown up in terms of like the space, because it's quite limited in terms of the size, and which is a bit more civilized and a bit more elegant in terms of the look and feel. So I would hope it would be not younger people. The Rum and Crab Chat, I would say, would be younger, whereas this I was hoping was going to be a bit more grown up. I think it's always been a bit more like that anyway, because from the previous people and the way it was, just because it's smaller. So to simplify the answer, I would say it's difficult for me exactly to say how it would be going forwards. Obviously, it depends a bit upon the license as well, but I would like to think it's a bit more grown up and elegant and sort of, because of the limited space limitation. I'm not sure I think you can keep it like that throughout the season. I don't think it really matters whether it's at this stage, what time of the season it is to maintain that, really. So, does that explain it?
Okay, Malcolm?
Yes, that's...
Okay. All right. Mark Andrews, do you have any questions?
Hello, Chairman. It's Mark here from Legal. Yeah, I just wondered if the applicant wanted to respond. I know you touched upon some of the matters raised in the representations, but obviously there's one of the important ones raised was the staff members at 4 a.m. on this. I think it was on the evening of the 16th into the morning of the 17th of September. I don't know if the applicant wished to respond to that accusation or allegation.
Like I say, I think they just unfortunately left the windows open or in the kitchen after hours work. But I think we've struggled with staffing generally. I'd like to think we can get once we get things in place, we can get more regular staff. Like I say, we changed the DPS over to Stuart, my business partner. We have. It's a case of kind of feeling your way through this. If that's going to cause problems, obviously we're not going to do that going forward. And it's the same as the Rum and Crab Chat, where we've had issues, we've always dealt with them. We don't allow after hours drinking there, for staff if they do, it's got to be quiet and they can't play music. So it's it's working through it really. I think realistically, we've just opened, people are kind of. We're just trying to kind of make sure that doesn't happen, basically, because now we're much more aware of what's going on in terms of what's around us. So I can't see that being a problem going forward.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Mr. Hayes, thank you very much for your presentation. I'd ask you if you would stay on the line and listen to the rest of the meeting. You will have an opportunity as a right of reply and also to make any a final submission to the committee when we've heard the other parties. So thank you very much for the time being.
Okay.
Thank you. Now I would move on. There are no responsible authorities present. Is that right, Helen?
Hello, Chair. It's Jessica. No, because the police were satisfied with the additional conditions, and environmental protection are satisfied with their additional conditions, suggested conditions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So therefore, I'd like to move on, and I would like to invite Mrs. Wallace-Jones to make her presentation, please.
Right. Yes, Julianne Wallace-Jones. I represent my husband, Nigel Wallace-Jones, and also another resident in Custom House, Mr. and Mrs. Clegg. They have the property next door to us. I believe they asked me to represent them. However, if I can just explain our situation. We own the adjoining property with the stud partition wall. It's called Harbour Cottage, and our entrance, our building backs onto Custom House Passage, and the other side, the entry which contains all the bins and the kitchen window to Custom House. Now, we've had a number of incidents recently. My husband and I were down in St Ives for a 10-day period. And during that time, we had no idea that the current operation procedure undertaken by Custom House, which was openly advertised, that they were serving drinks till 10:30, open till 11 o'clock. We assumed that the old restaurant license that was in place for the building was had been changed sometime during lockdown. However, clearly this is not. Now, the Cornwall Council licensing policy is very comprehensive, and it tries to create a balance between all interested parties, the business, residents, holidaymakers, and the needs of the general community. But the success of this policy is dependent upon licensees adhering to the rules, which are clearly laid out when their license is issued. Now, with most things in law, it relies on the reasonable man test and coming to the table with clean hands. The current license conditions on Custom House, which have been very reasonable, and we have no complaint against them at all, it's caused no issue with the previous restaurant owners in the last 10 years. And it's only changed hands. This is the fourth tenant since we've been involved. And they run it as a restaurant as per the conditions of the license. Serving drinks only till 10 o'clock, 10:30 closure, you know, as a proper restaurant with relatively low noise levels. But you are now, the applicant is now asking to remove these conditions and extend the license to 1:30 closure, and on key holidays up till 3 a.m. Before granting such an extension, I asked you to consider how they perform in relation to their current conditions. They've been open since August, and before you give them any more flexibility, you have to assess the fact that they have not complied with their current license, and they don't come to the negotiation table with clean hands. In fact, they've ignored them all. Now, when we were down in St Ives, we only became apparent of these breaches when we arrived home, when I obtained a copy of the license. But we saw that every night that alcohol was served till 10:30 and the premises closed at 11. The premises are no longer a restaurant. It's been totally fitted out solely as the bar, so there was no intention of serving food. We went in for a drink ourselves just to check it out. There was no food menu. There was no food free or to purchase. and it was basically a cocktail bar. At that time, we had no particular issues to it until the incident occurred on the 11th of September, when literally it turned into what was like a hen party club night. The music was so loud that went on till 11 o'clock, but it was a playlist for which encouraged hen party type effect. The restaurant was absolutely packed, and it was full of girls, and they were jumping up and down, singing along to the music, which was controlled by, the members of staff. If they didn't like that activity, they could have easily have changed the music or turned it down. But these girls were jumping on the floor, stamping their feet, singing "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme, a Man After Midnight," which presented it as a club, like a nightclub. Now, because we not only have an adjoining stub wall, but we also share joists that run the length of the building, and sat in our lounge, we could literally feel the vibration going through. And as I say, this went on till 11 o'clock at night, half an hour past their actual closing time. Now, ordinarily, I would have gone round there straight away and, asked them to, close, turn the music down. But because of COVID, it wasn't safe to do so. There was no social distancing. It was just too dangerous to go. So I decided the following day I would go round. And it was only then that we saw the blue notice on the door saying they were applying for an extension to 1:30. I was absolutely horrified. There was nothing on the street level to advertise this extension. And ordinarily, the front door where this notice was displayed is open, so you couldn't even see this notice when you're at street level. And when we visited the premises, I never saw it. And I am pretty clued up on these sort of things. So it was after that I actually asked for a meeting with the management to try and establish, what was going on. And as I said, I had no idea that the old license was still in place. I'd assumed that during the summer they must have got some form of variation. Now, I did meet with Mr. Hayes' partner, Stuart, and I did explain all the objections we were going to make and our concerns. The music level, which used to be low, run by 2 small speakers, they now had 5 speakers all around the room. These premises are tiny, and the windows were open every single night, which is in breach of their current license. In relation to the staff drinking on the premises, that was just the same night as I'd had the meeting with Stuart, complaining about the noise and asking them to keep it down. Their behaviour at 4 o'clock in the morning was just disgusting. It went on for over 3/4 of an hour. The music was on, the windows were open to the back alley, which is just next to our bedroom window. And as you can imagine, at that time of night, noise travels. Now, I saw in the licensee's response to all the objections that they didn't consider this a breach of the policy. Well, policy 3 on page 21 prohibits the staff making disruptive behaviour. I got up, had to go round in my dressing gown, masked up, knocked on the front door, and found it was the assistant bar manager who was drunk with his mate, arguing and swearing in the premises. I said I was making a complaint. I'd like to know if they actually made a record in the incident complaints book about McCall, because I'm sure they would not. But St. Ives is now facing its biggest challenge during this pandemic. it's heavily reliant on tourism, and holiday lets are the prime source of income for the town, not just for the owners of the properties, but for the restaurants, the retailers, everybody. And St Ives has always been marketed as a holiday, a family holiday venue. The applicant mentions other licensed premises along the front. Most of them, though a couple do have a license till 2 o'clock, they don't open till, they don't use that opportunity except for New Year and the places that like. And the Rub and Crab Shack, which they currently run, theirs is only open till 12 o'clock. I can see no justification for having a bar, which is basically what this is, with no food, music facilities, which can cause major problems to the locals. I can't see why they should be granted a 1:30 license. They have not demonstrated that they can run these premises. It matters not what they do elsewhere. It's what they've done since they've opened this in July, a total blatant breach of their license. So I do not think it appropriate that they be given greater leeway, even with other conditions, greater conditions, because they breached their current conditions when it's only till 10:30. They just do what they like, and clearly they have no control of what their staff are doing. So I don't wish to labour the point any further. I've made loads of representations in writing, and I just ask that you consider the reputation of St Ives and the holiday let surrounding. Thank you.
Okay. Do either of my colleagues have any questions of Mrs. Wallace-Jones?
I have no questions.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Malcolm?
Councillor Brown, you're on mute.
Is that all right?
Yes, yes, we've got you.
Sorry, right, okay. Sorry, I seem to be having problems at the moment with the controls. I just wanted to ask if we could be told a bit more about the meeting with Mr. Hayes's business partner. If you could tell us a bit about what his mood was, his attitude, whether you asked him specific points that you wanted actioned or changes in the practices that you'd observed already from the premises, and if you could indicate to us what his response to that was. I'm saying that now because that will give the applicant the chance to comment on what you say you were told in his summing up later, if he chooses to.
Yes, it's disappointing that his colleague Stuart Maguire isn't at the meeting, because my husband and I explained that, look, we know everybody's got to earn a living, and that it is a small premises, and it's always been a niche market as a restaurant. It was a successful, and we explained this to him, it was a successful vegetarian restaurant for years until the individual retired. But we had no objection to them applying or keeping what we thought was their license up until 11 o'clock. We had no idea it should have been finished serving alcohol at 10. We had no objection to them being open at a bar till 11 o'clock. And we asked them to withdraw their application to extend it to the late hours, as there doesn't appear to be a need on the front end of St Ives. If it was, the other premises would be open. As I say, the Rub and Crab Shack is quite a much larger premises, and they've got a license till midnight. And we explained to him that our concerns were that they were going to use this as an event bar for either hen nights, stag do's, or whatever. And of course, once a license is granted to serve alcohol till 1:30 in the morning or whatever, it might present itself as, you know, a nice cocktail bar at the moment for 80% of the time, but there's no obligation for them to keep that. We actually got very little response from Stuart, other than saying, well, you know, we just want to, you know, make a living and that sort of thing. But it's not all about individuals. It's about the bigger picture of St. Ives, and especially down on the wharf. If you walk down the wharf most nights, by midnight, it's quiet. Till 1:30 in the morning, they want music, you know, enhanced music. And I know that everybody's applying to have the windows shut, but they have that condition in place now, and they didn't adhere to it. How can we trust them to do it at 1:30 in the morning?
Okay, Malcolm.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mrs. Wallace-Jones, I wonder if I could just ask you, I'm just trying to get myself orientated as to the physical relationship between your premises and the Custom House. So I'm looking at a drawing of a plan of the Custom House, the upper floor, the layout, the internal layout. It's a plan which is associated with the licensing application, I think.
Yes.
And to the right hand side, there are the steps that go up from Custom House Passage and in through the first floor door.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to understand where your cottage lies in relation to the passage, and how it is connected to the Custom House.
Right. I think, you know, either Victorian times or Georgian times, when the building was constructed, it's a Grade 2 listed building. It was one large building that went down, I would say, about 50 feet up Custom House Passage.
Okay.
And then some time ago, which ours has been a residential property for over 50 years, it was subdivided into the front section, which is Custom House, then the next section, which is our Harbour Cottage, and then the furthest part away is the studio.
So if I was, I'm sorry to interrupt, if I was standing on Wharf Road looking at Custom House, your cottage is attached to the back of the building.
Yes, yes.
So to get to it, you have to walk up Custom House Passage.
Yes, yes.
Right, okay, and that is your only form of access and egress?
Yes, it's a flying freehold.
Right.
The Custom House bar is above a studio.
Yes.
And the studio goes partially under our lounge.
And
so we're connected by the lounge and our bedroom.
I see. So it's a 2-story cottage.
Ours is a 3-story cottage.
Right.
Because there was a net cellar, and the middle floor, which you access to from Custom House, is the lounge, and then we dropped the ceiling and put a bedroom in the loft.
All right, I understand. But okay, all right. Thank you very much. And could I just ask you, because you're speaking on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Clegg.
Yes.
And we've received representations from a number of residents, and Mr. Woodhouse we'll hear from in a minute. In your estimation, within the immediate vicinity, how many residential properties are there?
Oh, I actually put in a photograph with a picture, and there's about, in the immediate, about 15.
Residential properties?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you wish to add before we move on to Mr. Woodhouse?
No, I think I've said it all. My view is they can't keep to the current license So why should they be given a greater?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a very comprehensive presentation. So now let me move to Mr. Woodhouse and ask you if you would be kind enough to make a presentation to the committee.
Hi, yes, Andrew here. So not too much to add to what the previous speakers said, except perhaps to focus on Custom House Passage itself. And I think you've got a grasp of the geography, but if you come out of Custom House itself, the bar, you come out onto a small landing, which is effectively suspended in the air above Customs House Passage. And then you turn right and go down some fixed stone steps, which are then in line with Customs House Passage. And then, as previous speaker said, you are then on Wharf Road. These steps create a dogleg into Customs House Passage. You go in, you're underneath that landing that I mentioned, and then you turn right up Customs House Passage. There is the Customs House Passage is relatively narrow and somewhat poorly lit, although there are motion control lights up and down which have been installed by residents, and is susceptible to antisocial behaviour of various sorts. And if you're out, walking your dog before turning in at midnight, it's quite possible to encounter from time to time unpleasant antisocial behaviour in Customs House Passage. And my principal concern with the application is that a late licence right at the end of this passage will increase the prevalence, the risk and the prevalence of antisocial behaviour in Customs House Passage. And I think the main triggers for this are going to be congregation around the entrance on attempting to gain access, and also on turning out time. There's also obviously all licensed premises are non-smoking now. Many customers smoke, and the natural place to smoke, especially when there's a bit of rain falling, is going to be underneath the cover of that balcony that I've just mentioned. And I also consider there's increased risk of using the passage as a makeshift lavatory. I think the bar has only got one lavatory, which might suit as for a restaurant with a dozen covers. But post-COVID, when I have no idea what fire has said as the maximum head count of the property, but I would think it would be quite straightforward to get 30 people in there. 30 people late at night, one loo doesn't add up to me. In my representation, there were some steps mentioned. We were asked to volunteer steps which could help alleviate our concern. I highlighted some. I think if there were door staff positioned externally on this landing during the hours of opening, with a pastoral role over Customs House Passage, that would making sure or trying to diminish antisocial behaviour. Clearly, observation and footfall diminishes that risk, and having door staff being tasked in that sort of direction would help. But I note, despite what we've heard, no suggestion that any of my proposals would be taken into account. I tried to offer some suggestions which I thought would help everybody. There's been no take up on any of those, so my concerns remain unalleviated. So yeah, that's it.
You're on mute, Councillor Biscoe.
Did I do that? Sorry, Mr. Woodhouse, can I just ask you, did you have any, have you had any conversation with either of the partners who run the premises about your proposals?
No, I submitted them in writing.
Right, to the licensing authority or to the business?
To the licensing authority, but I believe all representation forms have been made available.
Yes.
To all parties.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's all right. And well, I hope that Mr. Hayes might address some of the issues that some of the suggestions you've made. And in relation to Custom House Passage, I just want to ask you a couple of questions, if I may. The first one is I can't ascertain from the material I've got, is the stairway, the external stairway with the stone steps, does that have a canopy over it?
I don't believe it has.
No.
So I don't believe there's a canopy over it. No, but it forms a canopy. Over
No, I understand that. Yes. Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. All right. Do either of my colleagues have any questions to ask you?
I would like to ask a question, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly, Mr. Evans.
We all talk about the narrowness of the excuse me, alleyway. Could somebody say exactly how wide it is? Is it a metre, 2 meters? That would give me a better idea.
I'd say about 4 feet.
4 feet, thank you.
Yeah. You need to turn side on to pass someone in it.
Right. Okay. Councillor Brown?
No, I've got no questions, please.
Okay. All right. Are you okay with that? All right, Jeffrey, you've got that. I don't have any further questions, I think, of Mr. Woodhouse. So could I thank you very much for your contribution, as I stumble through my papers a moment. Are there any other questions that you wanted to ask of any of the other persons, either of my colleagues?
Sorry, may I just add one thing?
Yes, if you will. Yeah.
Sorry, so the entrance to my property is in Customs House Passage. So it's not that I wander up and down there late at night for pleasure. It's actually to gain access
to and fro. Yeah.
I should have mentioned that. It's the only entrance. Yeah.
Yeah. And could I just ask, is Custom House Passage, is that a public right of way, or is it a private right of way over which you have some form of way leave or right of way?
I believe it's a public right of way.
Public right of way.
It's a public ancient highway.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so thank you all very much to sorry, Mrs. Wallace-Jones and Mr. Woodhouse. Perhaps now I could invite Mr. Hayes to make a final submission. I think a number of issues have arisen along the way, which undoubtedly you'll want to allude to, but this is essentially a final right of reply to you and a chance to make any final points that you wish to. So over to you.
Thank you. So I just sort of deal with Mr. Woodhouse's representation. He did say about keeping the windows closed and the music quiet and various other things, which all stuff like he outlined. To be honest, if you look at the report we've done, we have recommended that we do keep the windows closed on the sides because clearly that is going to cause some problems. They aren't actually, the windows that are in the customs house on the side aren't actually in the customer area. They are in the store cupboard and they are in the kitchen. But clearly it would make sense for us to kind of make sure that they are shut because obviously noise can come from there as well. I think it would be unwise in the current climate to try and keep the windows open in the front, particularly with COVID in the summer. We've been trying to create as much ventilation as possible in there. So, and from the acoustic report, it doesn't make any difference to the sound going backwards, basically. And you're more likely to get sound from the side, other bars and restaurants coming from the side, to be honest. So I think it would be hard to kind of, we've sort of isolated where the issues are with that and dealt with them if you look at the recommendations of environmental protection. The music quiet, again, we have pinpointed a volume which is acceptable, which is only as loud as people talking, so that mitigates any opportunity for us to kind of make it into club. So we have addressed that issue with the music quiet. We're only trying to achieve background music. And in terms of the speaker system, what was there before was wholly inappropriate. It was two quite big speakers pointing backwards towards their properties, which didn't give an even sound. You had to turn it up quite loud. And as part of the acoustic report, we've actually made the speakers smaller and just give a lower, more well-balanced sound, which again is in the report. I don't recognise the hen night scenario. We've kept COVID safe all the way through. So I don't recognise that at all. I know Stuart actually tried to meet Mr. Woodhouse and, Mrs. Wallace, and tried to allay her fears and sort of talk to her about what our plans were and what we were trying to do. And clearly that didn't have much effect. But I think actions speak louder than words. And, you know, in this situation, I think we have done an awful lot of work in trying to make this business viable and make it safe. And in terms of the fire, in terms of the work we've done with the police, in terms of the work we're doing with the staff, ongoing environmental protection, you know, I can't see how we can do much more at this current time. You know, we're just trying to make this business work. What else can I say? In the current climate, it's tough. You know, we just want to really bring it up to date, and give it a chance to operate it as other people operate their businesses around us. So, I think that's it from my side.
Okay. Mr. Hayes, thank you very much. I'm just going to ask my colleagues if they've got any points of clarification.
Chairman, could I ask a question? I hope this is allowable because it isn't clarification because he didn't refer to it. But one of the people who's given evidence to us has said that the premises are no longer serving food. Could he explain what the policy of the applicant is towards serving food in the future with these extended hours if the license is varied that way?
Sure.
I think so, yes.
So we'd like the opportunity to either serve food or not serve food. At the moment, I think it'd be great if we could serve food. The VAT element would be a massive bonus. You know, and that looks like it's going to continue. And even if to stay open, it seems like the new rules are if you serve food. But the issue we've had is that we have not been able to staff a kitchen, reset a kitchen, reset a menu. So what we've been trying to do is serve snacks with the drinks and also encourage people to come from the Rum and Crab Shack with takeaway, which we've been doing over there, and trying to encourage people to order from the Customs House on the Rum and Crab Shack menu. That's essentially what we've been doing. Ideally, going forward, we'll be able to do both in that environment. And it's a very, very small environment. It's two small rooms, 7 tables. It's not built to kind of build a club or a night venue as such. But I think it needs flexibility to be able to work within the context of what people are looking for, and so nice locals and visitors alike. You know, and I think it adds to the vibrancy of the place. So at the moment, in short, we'd love to do food, and going forward, yeah, but we need the flexibility to be able to do both, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm looking at this plan that was attached to the application, which is a hand-drawn plan, I have to say. So probably not to scale, but it does show the layout very well. Actually, it might be to scale. And I'm looking from Wharf Road with Custom House Passage to my right-hand side and looking down at a layout of the rooms that form your premises. So firstly, can I ask you what the exterior walls are constructed of?
The exterior walls are granite and brick.
Okay, and then so quite thick. by the looks of it.
Really, really thick. Yeah. The returns on the windows
yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Okay. So what I notice is that the rooms that I assume that you are leaving all the partitions, the internal partitions, in situ. So you will continue to have 2 rooms and 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms with a sort of an open plan kitchen area leading to the bar.
Yes, I mean it's quite early since we signed, so I haven't had a lot of time to consider the internal construction. But at the moment, the toilet and the storeroom will remain against that wall. Those won't be moved.
Okay, that's fine. And then there's the hall. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, that's it. No, that's it.
And then from the stairs, there is a hall that comes into what is labelled room 2 in this map and goes on to room 1, which is quite narrow. And off the side there is the WC and a pot washroom.
That's right.
Yes, right. Okay. Now there's a.
Well, that's actually a storeroom now. I think that was washing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it seems a long way from the kitchen to be washing pots, but still.
Yeah.
I just interested in the window in the storeroom. Is it possible that because that's not going to be affected by people? Is it possible that we could actually just simply say that will remain closed?
Yes, I think so. I mean, after 11, definitely. It does get warm in there because at the moment we've got some machines in there, so it kind of it creates quite a lot of heat. So it might need some ventilation. My suggestion was that I think with the noise management plan, is that we can potentially double glaze it or secondary glaze it.
That would be good. Yes. Okay, that would be good. Yeah. Yes. All right. So if the layout is staying the same, then the speakers that you're installing, the five speakers, they will be situated in the 2 rooms.
Yes.
And so each set of speakers in the 2 rooms will be contained within the areas of those 2 rooms. And so sorry, if I could just go on a little bit, there will be the area of the kitchen plus the hall, and then your 3 rooms. And the back of the kitchen, all the appliances and the wall there. So between the public rooms, as it were, you've got the void, which is the hall, plus the storeroom, WC, cylinder, and kitchen. Is that right? Okay, so there is a degree of space. Is it possible that, I mean, I assume that the door on the WC does stay shut most of the time. Is it possible that with proper ventilation, that the storeroom door could be kept shut as well in hours of operation?
Absolutely, yeah. It generally is. So I think the report was done. The acoustic report was done with those doors shut.
Yeah,
and that space as well.
Right. So in other words, there is a fair degree of void and barrier between the area where noise is likely to emanate within the premises and the attached premises at the back of the custom house, harbour cottages and so on. Okay, all right. So we've established that. Now, the last point I'd just like to ask you is about this issue, which I think Mr. Woodhouse raised, about the degree of regulation by yourselves of the bit of custom house passage which is affected by people coming and going from your premises, particularly going late at night, and whether you feel that you're able to maintain a regime there which will enable people to leave quietly because there are neighbours.
Well, part of the prevention of crime and disorder and public nuisance that we've done with the police was that we put signs up saying please leave quietly on the outside already, but the idea is that people don't congregate there.
Yes,
we can manage that internally because it's obviously not that big a space and not a lot of people essentially. I would like to point out that actually the steps don't come down into the passage; they come right onto Wolf Road.
Yes, I understand that.
Quite a long way out, so people are going to have to decide to go back up Austin's Passage. But generally, I would make people walk along the front.
Yes.
I can't see that being a problem because the closer building is actually Pizza Express on the right. But I think it's good that they can come out and they're being shuttled out onto the front where there isn't. It's more open space and it's less noisy. I don't think we can mitigate people wanting to go up that route as a means to kind of preventing walking that way. But you know, we can certainly ask them to leave quietly and make sure they're not congregating on the stairwell.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I think that's me done. Does does Mark Andrew have any questions at this stage?
No, I have nothing to.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've heard everybody and we've asked all our questions. And I'm going to ask if the Mr. and Mrs. Wallace-Jones and Mr. Woodhouse would retire from the meeting alongside Mr. Hayes, and we will retire in a different direction, and we will consider our decision, and we will notify you in writing as soon as it's physically possible to do so of our decision. So thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you very much.
And for your contribution.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, John. Bye.
Chairman, if we could have the wording, please. I think Helen's going to do it. I think Helen's
hopefully, yes.
Yes, Chairman, it's Helen Snell.
Yes.
If we can, for members to go into deliberation and make a decision, if we could vote to go into private session, I'll read out the statement, and then I will ask for a proposer and seconder.
Once we've done that, I propose that we have a 5-minute comfort break.
Okay. And also, Chairman, I need to confirm that the live stream will do to be paused as well during your confidential session. So in accordance with the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following business on the grounds that they would be likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information of the following description. Information in respect of which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings, and that the proceedings apart from the resolution shall remain confidential. So could I have a proposer for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Briscoe. And
Evans has seconded it.
Seconded by Councillor Evans. Can I just do a roll call to make sure you're all in favour? So members, you're voting for, against or abstaining. Councillor Biscoe?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Evans?
For.
Okay, I'll just contact the live stream producer and ask them to pause the meeting. Right. So if everybody could turn their microphones onto silent and switch their videos off.
Right,
and then,
I'm going to propose that while you're doing that, we have our 5-minute comfort break.
Okay, so we will adjourn until for 5 minutes then. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll confirm when the live stream is paused.
Fine.
On pause, please. And he will advise when we are live again, but in the meantime, if we can just be quiet. Chairman, members, it's Helen Snell. I can confirm that the live stream has now been unpaused, so we are back to streaming live.
Right.
So can I call that we have a proposal to go back into public session, please?
I will propose we go back to public session.
Thank you. That's Councillor Biscoe. And a seconder?
I will second.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. And just a quick roll call that you're all in agreement. Councillor Biscoe?
4.
Councillor Brown?
4.
Councillor Evans?
4.
Carried. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, so welcome back, everybody. I'd just like to ask Mr. Andrews, our legal advisor, to read out the proposition before I ask for a proposer and a seconder and we go to the vote. Mr. Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm you can hear me, Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The proposal is as follows: arising from consideration of the report, the evidence and submissions from all parties having regard to the statutory guidance, the Council's policy and the Licensing Act 2003, the application to vary the premises licence under the Licensing Act for Old Custom House St Ives be refused. Having considered the applications, members did not feel that there were conditions that could be attached to this specific application that would result in the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective not being undermined. Members also considered reducing the hours applied for, but due to the nature and location of this specific premises, members did not feel that this would address the concerns raised. Members noted the location of the premises, including the access to and from the premises, was in close proximity to a number of residential and business properties. Members noted that both the police and environmental protection had suggested conditions, but members also heard from other persons and members felt that the issues raised by them were important and relevant in the context of the application. In particular, members heard from 2 close neighbours of the premises who provided examples of where the premises have very recently breached its existing licence conditions. This included allegations of the premises undermining the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective on more than one occasion and breaching other conditions of their licence, including advertising a closing hour later than was permitted in their licence, serving alcohol without food, which was a breach of a condition of their licence, and playing loud music after their permitted hours. This concerned members who, on balance, accepted this evidence. Members also noted that the premises were small with only one access and exit and only one toilet. Members felt that a premises of this size and with limited access and facilities in this specific location was not appropriate for a potentially busy bar or cocktail bar, and on balance, members felt that it would undermine the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective. Taking all the information and evidence into account, members felt that it was reasonable and proportionate to refuse the application. That's the proposal.
Thank you. Could I have a proposer, please?
Yes, I would be happy to propose that.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. And
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. And all those in favour? Oh, sorry, no, roll call. Beg your pardon. Over to Helen.
Thank you, Chairman. Helen Snell, Democratic Services. Roll call, please, for the decision to refuse. Councillor Biscoe.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
4.
That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And can I thank everybody who participated in that session, which was very helpful. Thank you very much indeed. So moving on now to item 4.2 on the agenda, which is an application to vary a licence for the Red Lion in Helston. Now, could you please update us on the current state of play, Helen, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Helen Snell. I've just asked our licensing officer to join the meeting.
Right.
The licensing officer for this application is Sharon Dower. and she's just on the line now.
Right. We should.
I believe there are the applicant and other persons are not attending, but Sharon will take you through it and confirm.
But we had a letter this morning from the proprietor of the Red Lion Hotel to say that she was unable to attend. Did she say she was willing for the hearing to go ahead in her absence? I think she did.
Yes, she's happy for it to go ahead, Chairman.
Okay. All right. And there's nobody here from the other person?
No.
Right. Okay. So Sharon, please, off you go.
Thank you. An application has been received from Cook Pubs Limited for the variation of a premises licence for the Red Lion, 4 Church Street, Houston, that would increase the opening hours of the beer garden for 1 hour from 2200 hours to 2300 hours. One representation has been received from other persons who consider the granting of a premises licence may undermine the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective. The applicant is unable to attend today, and as you've just said, you've received her email. With reference to your earlier question regarding access to the beer garden, I have now received confirmation that the only access is through the premises. There is a side gate at the premises, but it's got a security lock on it and would only be used for exit in any emergency. The panel must consider whether the steps proposed by the applicants in the operating schedule are adequate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. If so, you must grant the application. Alternatively, you may impose additional conditions that you consider necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives. If additional conditions would not make the operating schedule adequate and it is necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives, part or all of the application may be refused. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the licensing officer?
No question.
Malcolm? No?
Yeah, sorry. I do have one question, and I don't know whether the licensing officer knows this or how relevant it is, but we've been told by Helston Town Council that they supported the planning application. Do we know if the planning application has been determined, and if it has been determined, if it included a condition about the closure from a planning permission point of view?
I can confirm that I believe that planning, they haven't got planning for after 10. But we've received no objection from planning, so I'm assuming they will deal with that if it was granted.
Okay, so later we can seek legal advice from Mr. Andrews about that, can't we?
Right. Okay. Good point. Good point. Yeah. I don't think I've really got any questions of the licensing officer. The thing that interests me is the number of residential properties that there are around the beer garden. And I'm afraid that from recollection and from study of the beloved Google map, I can't really make much of a determination on that. I'm just wondering if the licensing officer has got any idea?
To be honest, I don't really know what's at the back of the garden. I don't know what it backs onto. That would be really a question for the applicant.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
Chairman, can I just interject? It's Mark from Legal, Mark
Yeah.
Andrews. All I would say on that, Chairman, is that I'm happy to give legal advice on it in closed session. But all I would say on that point is that no representations have been received from any of the neighbouring properties. So I appreciate that the town council make that point, but we haven't actually had any complaints from.
No. Okay. All right. Fair point. Okay, I understand that. All right. So I have no questions of the licensing officer in that case. So thank you very much, Sharon. We have had an email from the applicant, which I assume has been read alongside the papers by the other two members, and we have nobody from Helston Town Council.
That's correct. Nobody's attending today.
So.
Chairman, it's Mark Legal again. Sorry to interrupt again. Could I just ask, just for completeness, as we've referred to it a number of times, could I just ask the licensing officer to read out that email that we received from the applicant?
Yes, I think that's a good thought. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you just bear with me, please. Sorry, I just had to bring it up there. Please could you pass on my email on behalf of myself, and she gives her apologies. I have the dentist at this time of the hearing, hence why I cannot attend, and my manager is working. Everyone that I thought of is busy, typical. I've emailed Houston Town Council and explained my reasons behind the application. I explained that we were mainly applying due to a few complaints from residents of Church Street about noise and people congregating out on the front of our premises, and so we would like to change it so that we can shut the entire garden into the smoking area at 11 p.m. We've had no complaints or problems at all regarding noise from the garden, and it seems more sensible to have everyone out the back of the premises. Also, with the current situation regarding COVID-19, more of our customers are wanting to sit outside, and we want to encourage this as late as possibly can. Our numbers are halved once we shut the garden, and I honestly don't know how long this sustainable for us in staying open. We have signs around the pub regarding keeping noise levels to a minimum, especially when leaving / being outside, and we do have a lot of respect in this matter. I also pointed out that other premises in town are allowed their outside areas to be open until 11 p.m. All we ask is that we can have the same. They seemed happy with my response. I'd just like to add that obviously at the moment we are shutting at 10 p.m. anyway, but if this should change, it would be a huge help to us to have our outside area open for 1 hour longer. We have put a huge amount of time and money into this year and feel that it's a great asset to the town. We just want to keep our business going despite all the problems we have had with the COVID restrictions. We will do everything in our power to keep the local residents happy and welcome them to come and speak to us at any point should they have concerns. Also, we have planted various large shrubs that should provide some barrier of noise over the next year once they have grown, as requested when we applied for planning initially. Many thanks for your help, Hayley Nicholas.
Okay, thank you. So I suspect that in the process of the procedure that we've actually arrived at the end of the open hearing. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct, Chairman. It's Mark from Legal. Yes, so you go into private session for legal advice. Chairman.
So therefore, I formally close the open part of this hearing and ask Helen if she will read out the proposition for us to go below the line.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, in accordance with the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following business on the grounds that they would be likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information of the following description. Information in respect of which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings, and that the proceedings apart from the resolution shall remain confidential. So can I have a proposer, please?
Proposed.
I'll move. I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Evans.
Thank you. So just a quick roll call there. Councillor Biscoe.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. I can confirm that's carried. I will now, if we could all put our microphones on mute, I will just confirm with the live stream that they can again pause the session, and then we will go back into open session for the decision to be announced. Thank you.
I've got 2 more meetings this afternoon on this. God, different things.
You're a noble soul.
I know, but it's more tiring sometimes. This is.
Can I just interrupt? We
So.
may be on live now. Yes, members, we are. We can confirm that we are live.
Okay.
So if I can take a vote to go back into public session, please.
Public session.
Thank you, Councillor Biscoe. Do we have a seconder?
Yes,
I'll
I will
second.
second.
Right. Yeah, we've got a seconder.
So Councillor Brown to second, and quick roll call. Councillor Biscoe.
4.
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Carried, Chairman.
So welcome back, and I would ask the solicitor, Mr. Andrews, to read out the proposal.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm you can hear me, please?
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Andrews.
Thank you. So the proposal is as follows: arising from consideration of the report, the evidence, submissions from all parties having regard to the statutory guidance, the Council's policy and the Licensing Act 2003, the application to vary the premises licence for the Red Lion Helston be granted as applied for. Dealing with the matters raised in the representations, members note the representations received from the other person in respect of the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective. Members noted that the representations referred to concerns about noise. However, members also noted that no representations had been received from any of the neighbouring properties, and further that no representations had been received from environmental protection. Members felt that on balance there was insufficient evidence that there would be public nuisance caused by 1 extra hour in the outside area. In respect of the representations relating to planning, members note that planning is a separate matter, that the applicant would still be required to comply with any planning conditions applicable to the premises, and that no representations have been received from the planning service in respect of this application. That's the proposal, Chairman.
Thank you. And could I have a proposer for that, please?
I'll propose.
Thank you, Councillor Evans, and I'll second. So could I ask for a roll call, please? Helen.
Thank you, Chairman. So Councillor Biscoe.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Evans.
4.
That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that brings us to the conclusion of this meeting. Can I thank everybody who's participated, particularly the officers and indeed the crew who are on the flight deck waiting to take us to oblivion, and thank you to all those members of the public and proprietors who've participated in the proceedings. Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, cheerio, everybody.
You've done a good job, Bert.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Helen and Mark. Kept me on the straight.
Okay.
Okay, take care.